Picture this. You step outside, and the air doesn't feel warm. It feels heavy, like you're breathing through a wet towel. The sidewalk shimmers, car doors burn your fingertips, and even the wind feels like it's coming from a hairdryer. Now, imagine that sensation. For days, for weeks, with nights that never cool down, power grids straining, crops dying in the fields, and people realizing, too late, that heat can be just as deadly as a hurricane. Today on Past and Present, we're diving into the worst heat waves in US history. From the Dust Bowl infernos of the 1930s, all the way to the modern heat domes of today. And as we go, listen for a theme that keeps repeating. Heat waves don't just test thermometers. They test everything we rely on to feel safe. If you've ever wondered what were the most brutal heat waves in America, you're in the right place. Because some of these stories are so intense, they sound exaggerated, until you realize they actually happened. Let's start where the word unbearable stopped being a metaphor. In the 1930s, the US didn't just have hot summers. It had a whole era of heat and drought that turned the Great Plains into a dust-choked furnace. This is the Dust Bowl period, when farms failed, skies went brown, and heat didn't feel like a weather event. It felt like the world breaking. The summer of 1936 is the one that still makes meteorologists widen their eyes. Temperatures soared across huge chunks of the country. Not just in the desert Southwest, places that were never built for extreme heat were suddenly getting cooked. Cities in the Midwest and Great Lakes baked under triple-digit highs, and the worst part was the nights. If the temperature doesn't drop, your body can't recover. People slept on porches, on fire escapes, anywhere they could find moving air. And for many, it still wasn't enough. In a way, those 1930s heat waves set the template. Drought dries the land, the sun hits bare soil, and the heat intensifies. It's like removing the lid from a pot. Everything evaporates, everything overheats, and the system spirals. Now fast forward to a different America. Air conditioning exists. Cities are bigger. Power lines stretch farther. You'd think we'd be immune by now. Then comes 1980. The 1980 heat wave wasn't just hot, it was relentless. A huge area of the central US sweltered through day after day of dangerous temperatures paired with major drought. Crops took a beating, livestock suffered, and the human toll climbed into the thousands in heat-related deaths. This is one of those moments where you realize heat waves aren't just uncomfortable. They're infrastructure disasters. Hospitals fill, roads buckle, electricity demand goes through the roof. And if you're vulnerable, elderly, isolated, working outside, living without reliable cooling, the risk skyrockets. Here's what made 1980 especially nasty. It wasn't only the peak temperature, it was the duration. When heat stretches on, your margin for error disappears. You don't get a recovery day. You don't get a cool night. You just get more heat. And then, as if the country needed a reminder that lightning can strike twice, the late 1980s delivered another punch. In 1988, the US was hit with a brutal combination of heat and drought, one of the most damaging drought events in modern American history. Rivers ran low, fields cracked, wildfires flared. Heat like that doesn't just harm people in the moment, it reshapes entire seasons. The kind of summer where everything looks sun-bleached, and the phrase, "no rain in the forecast," becomes a threat. Now, if the 1930s and 1980s were about wide area suffering, the mid-1990s gave us one of the most haunting lessons in urban heat, the 1995 Chicago heat wave. This one is infamous for a reason. It wasn't the highest temperatures ever recorded in the US, but it became one of the deadliest city heat disasters in American history. Over just a handful of days, hundreds upon hundreds of people died in Chicago, many of them elderly and living alone. And this is where heat becomes more than weather. It becomes social. It becomes about isolation, poverty, crime fears that keep windows shut, and the simple fact that in a city, concrete stores heat like a battery. The urban heat island effect is real. Pavement and buildings soak up the sun all day, then radiate that heat at night. So when a heat wave hits a dense city, it's like the environment refuses to exhale. And here's the scary part. A lot of the victims weren't doing anything extreme. They weren't hiking in Death Valley. They were at home. Heat just quietly overwhelmed the body, especially when dehydration, medications, or medical conditions were involved. After Chicago, a lot of cities changed how they respond to extreme heat. Cooling centers, wellness checks, warning systems. Because that heat wave made one thing painfully clear. Heat can be a silent mass casualty event. Now roll into the 2000s and you start seeing the big heat go national again. In 2006, a major North American heat wave slammed large parts of the US, with some regions breaking long-standing records. This is one of those summers where you remember the headlines about scorching nights and relentless highs. Heat that didn't just spike, but camped out. The West saw extreme temperatures, and the strain on public health and emergency services followed. Then comes 2011. Especially brutal in the southern plains, with Texas at the center of the heat and drought story. People who lived through it talk about it like a shared trauma. Lawn fires, endless burn bans, lakes shrinking, and days so hot they felt unreal. It wasn't just a hot day here and there, it was a season that felt stuck on broil. And right when you think, okay, surely the peak modern heat wave has to be behind us, the early 2000s say, not even close. The 2012 heat and drought was massive. It spread across broad regions, pushed temperatures into dangerous territory, and paired with conditions that hammered agriculture. And again, it wasn't only about the daytime highs. It was about the compounding effects, power outages, stress on infrastructure, and the way extreme heat can amplify everything from drought to storms to wildfires. Now let's talk about the 2020s, the era of the heat dome. A heat dome is basically a stubborn high-pressure system that parks over a region and traps heat like a lid. The sun keeps blasting down, the air keeps compressing and warming, and relief just doesn't arrive. In late June 2021, the Pacific Northwest experienced a heat event so extreme, it rewrote expectations. Places known for mild summers suddenly faced record-shattering temperatures. Cities like Portland and Seattle, where a lot of homes historically weren't built with air conditioning, found themselves in dangerous territory fast. When a region that isn't adapted to extreme heat gets hit, the impacts can be outsized. It's not just hot, it's we don't have the equipment, the habits, or the infrastructure for this. And that's a recurring pattern with modern, extreme heat in the US. It's showing up in places that didn't used to plan for it. Then, 2022 and 2023 kept the pressure on, with prolonged, intense heat episodes, especially across the South and Southwest. In recent years, you've seen heat warnings cover gigantic areas, overnight lows staying high, and communities dealing with the reality that the danger doesn't end when the sun goes down. And in 2024, the story became even more familiar. Widespread heat, record warm nights in many places, massive electricity demand, and the kind of summer where your weather app starts feeling like it's stuck. When you hear phrases like life-threatening heat, it's not dramatic language, it's a public health label. So what ties all these worst heat waves in US history together, from the 1930s to today? It's not just temperature, it's duration, humidity, nighttime lows, drought, infrastructure, and vulnerability. A 105-degree day can be survivable, with shade, water, and a cool night afterward. But stack that same day on top of 10 more, add warm nights, add humidity so sweat doesn't work, add a power outage, add isolation, and suddenly heat becomes a crisis. And here's the past and present part that hits me every time. Every era thinks it's prepared, until heat exposes the weak points. In the 1930s, it was farms and livelihoods. In 1980 and 1988, it was agriculture and entire regions under strain. In 1995, it was the hidden fragility of city life. In the 2000s and 2010s, it was the scale, heat stretching farther, lasting longer. And in the 2020s, it's the shock of extremes in places that never expected them. So if there's one takeaway from worst heat waves in US history, 1930s today, it's this: heat isn't just a summer vibe. It's one of the most dangerous weather threats we face, because it can look ordinary, right up until it isn't. Quick, real-world note before we close. If you're ever in extreme heat, don't wait until you feel sick. Hydrate early, take breaks, find shade, and check on people who might be isolated, especially older neighbors. Heat emergencies can move fast. And now, let's bring it back to where we started. That feeling of stepping outside and realizing the air is wrong, too heavy, too hot, too still. That sensation has echoed through American summers for nearly a century. From Dust Bowl fields, to city sidewalks, to modern heat domes, the story keeps repeating, just with different settings and higher stakes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the worst heat waves in American history, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which heat wave story shocked you the most, or which one you or your family lived through. Thanks for watching Past and Present. Stay cool, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next one.